So you came back to see what Baldy's been up to on the old car and V8 engine now, did you? Oh, well, let's go find out then, shall we? Ahead and looked back on some of the comments in those previous videos on the car and engine, and I heard some of you guys complain about the lighting. Unfortunately, I don't have any proper lighting equipment, but I do have this. Oh, god dang! And I do also have this beautiful device here, a Ryobi spotlight. This and the headlamp is two of the most powerful lights I have, so hopefully it'll help you guys see some more. Anyway, back to it. I was able to find a very, very, very important part for the engine. This goes as part of the synchronizer vibration control assembly. And I was wondering where this part was, and I finally found it. So I'm really happy about that. And this would actually go right here on this rod, and it would ride on a lobe here on the camshaft. And then it would bump the wedge in on that shaft there that connects to the frame, and that is how your vibration assembly works. This part was actually one of the nicer pieces found. It had some copper corrosion on it. As you can see, it's made of copper, which is really interesting, I thought. And the wheel up here that rides on the cam lobe was actually frozen solid. It wouldn't move. There was actually some rust down where you can see the light coming through. There was some rust that was connected to this this wheel here, and that was preventing it from moving, as well as rust within where it turns and everything. But I heated the piss out of it, put some evapo-rust in there, and I gripped it with some vice grips on this wheel, and got it to come free. And I don't know what the metal's made of, what that metal's made of for the wheel. I'm guessing it's cast iron, because as much as I put those vice grips on, those vice grips did not leave a scratch on this piece. So goes to show, when you're working with parts that are tougher than your tools, you're in the right spot. So that I'm happy I found. I also found one of the flywheels. I brought it in. That is one big heavy flywheel. That thing is not messing around. It's in really good shape. Got another one too. Got a spare if we need it. Found an oil pan. I went ahead and painted it and cleaned it out the best I could. As you can see, it's got screens on the bottom here. And the oil sump would sit, I'm not entirely sure where it would sit, probably back here. And I think it connects, or leads a tube down through one of these holes here. But this screen over here has some damage from the rust. It's missing all bunch of pieces right there, but you can see there's little spots where it's either welded or maybe brazed or soldered in, and I bet if I can get this screen off, I can just put another one on and I can solder it in place. But that should be an easy fix. But we do have another oil pan. It's just covered in oil on the inside, so that's why I chose this oil pan. It was a little bit easier to clean up than the other one, but if I can't fix that one, then I'll move to the other one. You've seen all the parts in here. I went ahead and I grabbed two other heads, one on each side. They're in pretty good shape on the outside. On the inside, they're not too bad. There's a little bit of scale rust and crap built up in the little chamber there, but that can all come out with a wire wheel, some evapor-rust, maybe a chisel, because that's not all rust. That is gunk and grease and everything. The other one looks pretty good. The drive clutch plate and the metal clutch spring release plate is in that box underneath there. And here is the manifold assembly. Now some of y'all might be looking at that and be saying, "What the hell did you do to that thing? That thing's not original. You ruined it. It looks like something that came out of a beauty pageant." Hang on there, Ruffy Tuffy. Let me explain now. Now, you see, one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to mechanicking, especially on newer stuff, is the fact that everything is just painted the same color and crammed into a tiny space. It honestly doesn't really help when you're trying to figure out where one specific thing is. Like, everything's black and the same color and crammed in to a very small area. And you see, I really like color. It's just, when you use the right 2 colors, 3 colors, however many colors you wish, if you use just the right ones, it can look really cool. Take, for example, all these airplanes. They've got a whole bunch of different colors to them, and they just look really good. Honestly, that's what I'm trying to go for here. I know it's not original, and that's the thing. It's just paint. It's just paint, y'all. If I really want to change the color later on in the project, nothing but a little bit of sanding, priming, and some paint. I honestly think with this engine being a whole bunch of different colors, it's going to look really whack. And I like whack. I don't know, just brings a little bit of uniqueness to it. You know what I'm saying? But I did manage to get this entire assembly back in one piece. And it looks really, really good and really clean. There are no gaskets or seals in any of the spots where there should be, because I don't have any. I am still going to have to file a lot of the surfaces because they're still rough. But these gaskets were really, really thick. And so I'm sure they'll squish together and make it so it is airtight where it needs to be. Now, I did put the carburetor on here just to figure out how some of these linkages work. And it's really weird because this whole part is known as the heater control system. As you can see right there, the Marvel heat control system. What that means is what is below the carburetor here, the manifold chamber, I guess you can call it, or manifold assembly. I know this is the whole assembly, but it is split in half. It is closed off, meaning that the intake manifold and the exhaust manifold, they are not one. They are not one unit. They are closed off and separated from each other, as they should. And there's a lever down here that is in the exhaust manifold assembly part in the chambers, and that connects with the whole throttle assembly. You see? There is your idle screw, so it stops right there on that little spot, and you can adjust it, and then when you press down on the pedal, it pulls a lever back that connects up here, and that is opening up your throttle. Sending this plunger down. And then if we go on the other side while it's moving, it's got a whole bunch of wacky crap going on back over here. You got it going here, going up, so you're giving it gas, and then it's also got this weird rod that comes up here and stops. As you can see, it stops and then it starts pulling the whole assembly. Now I think there is a throttle button. One of those switches in the car is a throttle button, I believe. But this rod, which was bent out of hell, comes down and connects to that little butterfly valve in the heat control assembly. Now I remember reading in the manual too that there are different settings on this carburetor for a whole bunch of different circumstances and all this other crap. For example, over here, you can't really see it. I don't think it'll come up on camera, but it actually says winter, and over here it says summer. And this thing is supposed to move and socket itself into place with its shape. And that's just one of the weird things about this carburetor and this car. And over here, if we go back to the other side, you can see it's got different spots here for that butterfly valve in the exhaust chamber. Now, I have this hooked up wrong, I found out. I saw this was solid. It was rusted shut, so I heated it up and got it all loose, got it all assembled. I just have 2 nuts down there and a cotter pin holding it into place, but I got to switch this around so this square piece is back here, and then I'm going to probably need to find a spacer or make a spacer that fits in here and doesn't have all this slop in the whole assembly. Now I found out a very interesting thing about this carburetor, mine in particular. You see that? You see this? That's not supposed to be there. If I go ahead and pull up a picture here of another carburetor off of a different car on the internet, see this is an air adjustment valve, or whatever it may be. I can't really remember what it said in the manual, but it's got this big plate, almost like a door, that when you loosen this up, it opens it up a little bit, and it has something to do with the air. So, but you can see this part right here, and this whole rod or flat plate assembly or whatever is not supposed to be there, because if you can see, if the camera will kind of catch it, it's not there. It's just the air inlet valve. There is no other part. Went ahead and showed this to my dad, and he honestly thinks it's a modification done. And it looks like that to me too. Because this is supposed to attach up here on top of the carburetor and go through that bolt. And then it would go up here, and this would stop this somehow from doing something. I have no idea. Luckily, I have found a carburetor on eBay, and I have gotten it. Because I do not trust what this carburetor is offering. It's just too janky, too froze up. I did my best to clean it. And honestly, if any of you guys have any idea where to get a carburetor kit for this thing, comment down below. Those are the model numbers. It is a model 1088, 188, model DO. It's a very weird carburetor. Now, in order for me to get this manifold to look as good as it does now, it was brutal. It was a fight. So here is the intake and exhaust manifold, and let me turn this light on here and get some more light on it. It is not as bad as it looks. There's a lot of bird crap on it, but I went ahead and I heated the piss out of this thing. And when I say I heated the piss out of it, I mean I heated the piss out of it. Every nut, bolt, linkage that I can find, and it actually worked. This one was frozen, but it kind of opens up a little bit. I'm going to have to work on that. This mechanism on this side, and this side is free. I haven't tried these bolts. I'm going to need to take this off. I'm going to need to take all these pipes off because I cannot fit all of this in evapor rust. But that's what I did before I even cleaned it, is I just heated up all the spots that need to be removed, because heat is your best friend when it comes to something like this. Alright, so just a little update. The manifold here is what I've been battling the most. Out of every other part, I am battling this manifold the most. And it gets actually pretty interesting. See, here's the main assembly. I've got it disassembled as much as I can. I tried to get these nuts off, ended up breaking that one, and this one, if I zoom in over there, it came out with the stud. But I was able to get the intake pipes off, and these are actually the exhaust pipes, because I see in all these photos that these ones are all rusted and everything, and these ones have been the hardest ones to get off this thing. I was actually able to get the other side off. I had to torch it, put some PB blaster in, and then hammer it off with a dead blow. But the other one on the other side, it was in really, really bad shape. It was cracked on the other side right here, and it was all pitted with rust on these surfaces. It was bad. So I went and got the other one from the other assembly that I showed in the video of the car overview, and this was part of it. You can see where it broke off on the other manifold assembly, so I have to get these off. And I actually found something very interesting that I will show you. That pipe that was sticking out on the front passenger floorboard happens to be a whole other manifold assembly. Except this one is not usable. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the whole center system has completely been eaten away by rust. Yeah, lovely. So that part is not usable. There's really no parts in there. The butterfly valve's missing. The heater system butterfly valve is frozen shut. These pipes are in good shape though. I can probably get these two off. And this one might be a little tricky. It's cracked right where the other one is cracked on the other manifold assembly. But these studs have broken. So this one is still usable if those studs get drilled out and new studs are put in. So these pipes are all usable, and this, I really was glad to find this, because the other manifold has a fitting for a hose, which, by the way, if you guys have any information on what that hose does, please comment down below. The knowledge would be great to know. And this one's just closed off, so I have no idea what it does. And I know this car does not have vacuum assist brakes. And I'll just show you the other manifold again. This one I showed in the car video. But this was the manifold that came off of that real good assembly. And you can see how it's all pitted there. But it's also broke, if I can flip it around. It's cracked right there. You can see. And that part's real pitted. So that one's still usable. It would just need to be brazed and filled in. But that's where this assembly broke, is right there. But if I can get those parts off easily in one piece, that could probably be brazed back together. But anyway, like I said earlier, this manifold has been a process. Especially these exhaust pipes. And getting them off of the assembly and trying to get them apart. I've literally been using a screwdriver to hammer it in and chisel out that old seal and gasket, because I do believe there's a thin strip of metal in between the gasket material, and that was what caused a lot of the rust in between there. But I heated it up again. I've been chiseling it. I also have been drilling it with the drill, just taking it in there and drilling out sections of material. And then I also came up with a brilliant idea of using Sawzall blades, where on the good assembly I actually just went and I hand sawed the rest of it out because it was actually pretty soft. But this one's tricky. Now you can see I've gotten almost all of it off, the diameter of the bolt wise, on both sides. And that was just a mix between chiseling, drilling, and sawing. I actually upgraded, and I'm using my M12 Milwaukee handsaw with a metal cutoff blade, and that actually worked. I used the wood blade to get the big chunks out, and then in spots where I couldn't get it in, like that small spot over there on the outside, the big blade wouldn't fit, so this one just so happens to fit in there perfectly. But I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a little bit more final cutting and chiseling and drilling, and I'm going to heat these things up so flippin' hot that they can't stand it. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to put a rag into the vise, wrap this in a rag, and I'm going to take some vice grips and I'm going to see if I can twist them loose. I have been soaking them in PB Blaster, so wish me luck. And just like that, mission accomplished, boys. I was able to get these things off. I didn't even use a pair of vice grips. I just clamped this part that was stuck into the vise and started twisting the whole manifold, but I heated the piss out of it. I put a lot of heat, concentrated a lot of heat right there, because I'd already done it up here a couple of times. PB Blastered it in there, in there. We got them off. And that surface is real rough, but that can be filed down. Can even use a grinder. A lot of it's just powder, especially around the stud here. That can be filed and flattened with time. I'm just happy that this pipe here is in better shape than the other ones. Not cracked anywhere, a little rough on the surfaces, but that can be ground and filed down. So heck yeah. So yeah, it definitely took some doing to get this piece looking as good as it does. I know, it looks wacky. It looks wacky as hell. It looks like, I do not know what it looks like. But I'm actually very happy that I got this far with these pieces, you know. There's something to, you know, work off of. You know what I'm saying? Got new hardware. The only thing that's not fixed on this is I could not get that stud out. I could not get this plate off. So I figured it's been on there for 93 years. It's probably going to be there for another 93 years. So I went ahead and I just found a nice bolt and washer and I stuck it in the other side. And I also did use anti-seize on all these spots where hardware is used. I did use the original brass exhaust manifold pipe nuts as well because I could not find the right size. But that is pretty much it for the manifold talk. Now we're going to start fuel pump talk. I did manage to figure out that these two wackadoos are fuel pumps. Specifically, AC Model B fuel pumps. Now in just a minute I'm going to show you something amazing. But these are AC Model B fuel pumps, and they used these pumps for everything back in the day. Chevys, Buicks, Oaklands. I think Ford had a few of them on their V8s. But the AC company or whoever built these built a whole bunch of variations, and these ones just so happen to be the Model Bs. Really the only difference is I'll show you in a minute, but the actual arm that operates the diaphragm in this thing is straight. A lot of them actually had a little elbow that would be hit, whereas this one rides off of the cam lobe on the camshaft on the rear of the engine. This one here cleaned up real well. I evapor-rusted both of these for, you know, a couple of hours. They're made of die cast, so just the small hardware pieces needed some evapor-rust treatment. I cleaned them up, you know, I heated them with the torch a little bit, got all the moisture out of all of them. This one is not usable. It's cracked right here on the housing. It can probably be fixed and brazed with time, but this one is also frozen shut. The arm will not move. The diaphragm won't move. So I'm going to use this one as a donor and take it apart and learn how it goes together, and then buy a rebuild kit for this one. This one does happen to have the screen, but it's pretty wore out. But this one over here does not. Now, the amazing thing I wanted to show you is, like I said, I evapor-rusted these. I rinsed them off in hot, soapy oil eater degreaser water, and I heated them up with the torch to get all the moisture out. But listen closely. This thing still pumps. It still pumps after 93 years. Which I thought was freaking cool. Amazing that this old thing still works after being out in the weather and whatever other stories it can tell. But it works. Now, my father instructed me when I showed him this. He was pretty impressed too. But he said to probably just go ahead and buy a rebuild kit for it, which is probably what I'm going to do. That's why I have this one, so I can take it apart and, you know, break parts if it happens, instead of breaking them on this one and rebuild this one. I'm probably going to make a video, you know, probably a video just on these while I'm taking this one apart. You know, my Oakland manual does have a whole bunch of information on this, so I will include that in that video. But comment down below if you guys want me to, you know, do a video on these things. I haven't seen a lot of videos on these fuel pumps, let alone the Model Bs. So, you know, comment down below. See what you guys want. So yeah, now that I'm finding I pretty much have found almost all the parts, things are going to start winding down and getting more mechanical. I'm going to have to start getting into more of the mechanical devices and everything else on this car. But right now, I'm going to go ahead, go out to the shed, and show you some other parts I did manage to find. I did manage to find 6 more valves out of everything that was out in the shed, so that's good. Alright, so what I managed to find, I don't know if this is part of it or not. Have no idea. It might just be a random piece of metal, because this is where we stored our metal. But aside from the camshaft and the rocker arm shaft, there's a whole other crankshaft in here that I found, which is good. Now we have another crankshaft. Now, the weird thing is I think those weights have been taken off before, right there, because I'll show you in a minute on the other crankshaft. They are flush with the weights. These are not. So, and the book says never to take those weights off, so I wonder why they took those weights off. Hey, that's great. Another crankshaft. My dad did tell me that he almost, I think he said a complete engine, but I have yet to prove that. But I will take an engine block and a whole bunch of other engine parts. I'll take what I can get, hell yes. But as you can see on this other crankshaft, those bolts, or whatever holding those weights on, are flush and actually encaved in the weight itself. Those other ones are sticking out. So I don't know if that was a temporary thing to just keep them in place or what. Because who knows, if they're too big, they might completely destroy the oil pan and the oil pump and yeah, you know, all the good stuff that, you know, allows your engine to live. Now, speaking of all these parts for the Oakland and finding parts and everything, I managed to find 3 more books that are really going to help me out with this. One of them is a master parts book. The other one is a carburetor tune-up book. And the other one is a motor care book for the Oakland V8 engine. Now, I managed to get all 3. The other 2, unfortunately, are not here yet. I really wanted to show you guys them, but they're just not going to be there on time. But I will show you this other book. Hang on. Okie dokie. So here it is. Here is the book that would have been the Pontiac parts computer catalog for the 1930s. Now it says Pontiac and it says 1939. This book was effective December 1st of 1938. So it goes back to all these. Let me see if I can find it here. I know it's around here somewhere. It goes all the way from 1927 on the Pontiacs all the way to 1939 Pontiacs. It also includes the Oaklands, the 1931 and the 1930 Oakland. Now, it's really weird how this book works. It's got a whole coding system and all this stuff, but I managed to figure out through skimming through this book that you got to pay attention to the letters and the numbers. As you can see, 1930 Oakland has an O and an 8 for 8-cylinder and O for Oakland. Now, it lists all these different, look at this, all this information. A sport Phaeton, a roadster, a standard coupe, a 2-door sedan, a standard 4-door, and a custom sedan. So we're in the category of either a standard 4-door sedan or a custom sedan. I have no idea. But in order to use this book, all I got to do is, okay, I need to flip to a page and, well, let's see. All right, we need a front fender. Okay. So we just go down and, 8, Oakland, O for Oakland, 8 for 8-cylinder, and 30 for 1930. And that would have cost, for the right hand, $16.29. So this book will come in handy, and it's got, let me see if I can go back just a bit ways. It's got some good diagrams in here somewhere, some good illustrations. It's got a whole bunch of illustrations for a whole bunch of parts. Now, it doesn't have any illustrations for, you know, the Oakland, but it has it for, I know there's a starter motor in here somewhere. But you see, it's got a whole bunch of, like, switches. Like, that's the switch for the starter motor that you would push with the foot pedal. Klaxon horns. Whole bunch of good stuff. Body parts. Just a whole bunch of good information. So not only can I work on the Oakland with this parts book, but if I ever get a Pontiac, I'm good to go. And that, my good folks, is pretty much everything I have to show you for this video. I will be leaving a link down in the description below, or I guess I should say links, to all the previous videos I've made on the car and the engine and everything like that, just to help you guys, see the rest of the progress. I really like making these videos on weird, wacky, old technology because I don't see a lot of it on YouTube when I need it. And I know how it feels when you're trying to find information on something that you can't find the information for. So, if I can help you guys out in any way possible, just a tiny bit, it makes me feel really good. And I love hearing your guys' feedback and all that. So, comment down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more content. And Yamasaki out. We'll see y'all later.